There's an old saying, may you live in interesting times. Now, on first glance, that sounds like a really nice thing to say, the kind of thing that you might get on an embroidered tea towel or a little tapestry or something like that. But apparently it originated as a kind of curse, and it is almost used in that sense that it's said ironically or said in tongue-in-cheek. It's not to wish someone well, to say, may you live in interesting times. In fact, almost it's exactly the opposite. This day last week, the new American president started his term pretty much on the promise to preside over less interesting times than his predecessor. To say we were interested is probably the very least that we could say of these last 4 years. Sometimes we were astonished or appalled, sometimes outraged, sometimes enraged, sometimes just raged. So, for the last 4 years, we've had a little morning time ritual here in Bennett Towers. As the first coffee of the day brews, I open up the iPad and start flicking through the news headlines, inevitably dominated by you-know-who from across the pond. And day after day, as you read the headlines, it happens again and again. Your mouth drops open. It's happened yet again. Yesterday's status quo has been smashed to smithereens by the latest norm-shattering outrage. And so Susan would always, when she sees my face, she asks me the same question. It almost became a kind of joke because she asked the same question so often. What has he done now? The drama of it all was exhausting, but it was also kind of seductively addictive. There's even a word for it, doom scrolling. And like all addictions, every hit had to be stronger than the last. And so in this new season, how beautiful and wonderful, what a weight released, how much we long and hope and pray for a season of detox from that intensity, hoping and praying for quieter, less interesting times. Of course, as a complete contrast, while we may have been fretting and fuming about global events, just the day-to-day events of the last year haven't felt like interesting times at all. Do you remember the day we went out to get the milk? We'll say yes, absolutely remember it vividly, because at least that was one specific thing that you can remember in a week of days that just all seem to blur together. Without picnics or parties, coffee meetings or cinema trips, date nights or deadlines, the days all blur into one. I think that's why we can all remember exactly what we did last Sunday. That was our glorious snow day. And so at last we remember it like crystal, because the snow was genuinely something completely unique and different. So, is there a happy medium between the days that are just a bit too interesting? Can we pray for a little bit of a time of rehab from those days of frantic doom scrolling and all the toxic stew of rage and helplessness that have characterised so much of the last couple of years? And yet, can we also pray that we find ways to be reawakened and re-inspired amidst these days that sometimes are deadening monotony and aren't interesting enough? It's a tricky balancing act. It's quite a challenge, an interesting challenge in fact. So can we pray, truly pray, that we may live in interesting times? Cheers.